For me, honestly, I've said this many times. I'll say it again. Your mark is less important. Okay, so here we go. The first one was just a plain old, no context attached to it, all four quadrants involved, regular quadratic equation. And so the way most of you got this right. Some of you said, yeah, it's pointing, A is positive, so it's downward. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, that's a contradiction, right? So you did know what to look at, but if A is positive, it's pointing, it's opening up, it's doing this. This is the opening, it's opening up. X-intercepts, all you have to do is let y2 equal to 0, and there were two x-intercepts, so you got to watch out for that. Y-intercept, you didn't have to use your calculator, you could have just taken it straight from there. The vertex was a min in this case, and there it is. Some of you got this wrong. It's the equation of axis of symmetry. I actually added the equation specifically before I printed it because I figured, you know what, I'll give you a hint. And it's x is equal to the x value of the vertex. Okay, that's what I was looking for in particular. The domain is all reals or infinity, negative infinity, positive infinity. Just make sure you have round brackets around it. The range, right, this is pointing up. So your range is y is greater than or equal to the y value of the vertex. Right, so you have it like that. What's that doing there? Anyways. Or is I would warn, some of you did amazing. You gave me both. I would just say, just do one, and this is why. If you get one of them wrong, you still lose marks. I know it sucks, but the province says, like, if you contradict yourself, you lose marks. So choose either or. Unless you're super confident, even then I would say just pick one. Because if you get one of them wrong, like if this is right but this is wrong, then you lose marks because it's a contradiction. It's like, wait a minute, do you know what you're doing? Because we're not sure now. Did you just guess, right? So make sure you pick one or the other. Smallest first, largest second, always. The order matters in which you state your domain and range. Okay, and then it was graphing time. I was looking for labels. So labels is a mark, so that's the equation and the axis itself. Shape are the points where they're supposed to be. And scale is obviously whatever you chose. Some of you chose like interesting increments. I do not care. You can go up by 1.5 if you want. By 3/5 if you want. I don't care. As long as it's consistent. So I count the number of boxes and I do count and I look at the numbers. So give me some sort of indication that you're going up by a certain amount. So that's the 3 marks that were associated with that graph. Some of you, I gave you a hint. I'm like, you told me it's pointing up, but your graph was pointing down. So I'm like, didn't you look at your calculator when you entered it, right? Like it should look, at least it should open the same way as your calculator is showing you, right? And if it doesn't, you're like, wait a minute, I know it's supposed to be pointing up because I see that A is positive, right? So troubleshoot. Don't just blindly trust your answers. Next. I didn't ask you to graph a whole lot on these, but be prepared. If I ask you to graph one of these regressions, make sure you know how to do it. It would be the exact same steps as before, but the price is going down. The passes are going up by 75. So there's your revenue or profit. I asked you for price versus profit. So L1 and L2. Make sure you give me some sort of keystrokes, right? I actually am changing my mind about not showing L1, L2, Y1. The reason, I'm not going to take marks away, but I will just say, do this to remind yourself that you should tag this along, okay? That should be tagged along. Because exam time comes along, and students forget how to get this to show up on their Y1. Because you forgot to do this part. So just a suggestion there for you. Maximum revenue. Guess what? It's going to be at the maximum at the vertex. Don't just give me the vertex. actually tell me. That was a common theme. Some of you just give me the vertex, but I need to know which one of those two numbers is actually answering the question. Put a unit on it. Just make sure you do that, okay? I don't know, I feel like the window would have been okay. I'll just say this one more time so you can't say, I didn't know, Mr. Dirksen, I didn't know. Right, so when you enter, give me just 1 second here. Oops. When you enter values, I want you to do two things. I want you to double check see, even right now, I'm kind of panicking because you're waiting for me. Just take your time, okay? Check. I will check. I will check. So this one is rounded, but if you go over it, it does tell you the decimal that you entered. Weird, but hey. And then we go perform a regression. I just want to see how the window, if you struggled with your window. So that's the equation. It should be in here. If you want to use zoom stat, make sure plot 1 is turned on. So I'm going to go zoom stat, which is 9. And you know there's something wrong here, right? It doesn't look right. It's on the way down. So the first thing I want you to know when you do zoom stat is you go to your window, change your x min to like -5, and your y min to -5. Just do those two right away. Then hit graph one more time, and now you know, okay, I see where this is going. I need to increase my Y max. I'm going to go, what, 90,000? Try that. Yep. So the Y max is done. I just have to do my X max now. That would be, I don't know, 150. There you go. Okay. So you're like, zoom stat doesn't really help a whole lot. I agree. But it's better seeing something than not seeing anything. That's my theory there. Okay, zoom fit, would that have worked? I'm going to try it. Hey, it actually did the trick. Yeah, it just looks a little different, but you do see this part, which is what you want. So zoom fit is also there to help you. All else fails, zoom standard, which I think is not going to be good in this case. Right, it goes straight up here. Because you're so zoomed into the origin, it doesn't really do a whole lot for you. Zoom fit again, or sorry, zoom fit. Now zoom fit doesn't work that well, so it's interesting. Zoom fit is kind of basing its calculations on what you're currently seeing. Okay, so anyways, you need to be able to play around with it. Let's keep going. Some of you need to make sure you have your quadratic formula written down, and maybe practice a little bit more. Go into your booklets and look up quadratic formula and see if you can do it. Okay. So the main one major mistake, or common, it wasn't major, but common, is you went -38 here. Some of you plugged in the wrong values for B, like you didn't plug in the right values. But if you did this correctly, you get that and that as your two x-intercepts. So that's what I was looking for. Okay. So I would like you to get to this point before you branch off. I would like to have a number plus or minus whatever is in the root over 2 times a, which is 14 in this case. And then you go plus or minus to get your two roots. You could double check this using a graphing method. Some of you used the graphing method, but I wanted to use quadratic formula. Okay, you can put this into y1, this into y2, and find where they meet, and double check to see if these are actually the values you're supposed to get. Okay. Next, most of you got this one right. You want a narrow y-intercept of -5 in general form. Opening downwards. Oops. Nothing ever happened, right? -2 or -1,000. Some of you went like, wanted to make sure you got that right. That's good. I don't care about B, but the -5 had to be there. Then this one here. You know what, folks? I will shave off 2 marks from the total on this test. I feel like I didn't prepare you for these two here. So when that happens, I want to take ownership, and like it's not fair for you too, because I know I kind of just briefly touched on it, but here's the kicker. Okay, if it's in vertex form, you should remember that it's like this, where H and K, the vertex is H, K like this. Okay, you plug it in, you plug it in. So that's the first thing I wanted you to do. And the most important thing here is, if you want to copy this down and highlight it, is that the x value of the vertex comes in here with an opposite sign. Okay, so if it's -3 here, it's +3 there. If it's +3 up here, then it'll be -3 there. That's one thing I need you to remember. Whereas the y value of the vertex, when you plug it in, it doesn't change. If it keeps the same sign, no sign change there. Okay, so that is what I need you to do first and foremost. Put in the values for your vertex. And if you want 2 x-intercepts, how would you make that happen? Well, I know that if k, or this value, is positive, where are you on your plane? -3, 5, you're up here, correct? That's where the vertex is. Which way would you want it to point to have 2 x-intercepts? Down, right? You want it down. That's why I needed to make sure the negative was here. And for wide, anything between 0 and 1 would have worked. I will go to your notes and make sure you understand this for next time. Okay, next time this happens. So therefore, the range of this one, I just go by the vertex, so y would be less than or equal to 5, or -infinity to 5. Okay, -infinity here all the way to 5. So write it down so you at least know how that was supposed to be done. But I will shave off, so instead of 37, it's going to be out of 35. So your mark will go up. Okay, next, some of you missed this. Okay, how long is the elastic in the air for? 1.1 seconds. So the 1.1 is the total flying time. So it's actually over here. And it lands on the same height as before, right? From one desk to another desk. So this thing never touches the ground. So if this is 1.1 and it reaches a maximum height of 7, I need to divide the 1.1 by 2 to get the 0.55. That was so -1 there if you made that mistake. But then I honored it based on whatever else happened. If you actually had this, as long as it didn't touch the ground, you still got a mark for correct interpretation. And then I would like to see that table of some sort, not necessary, but it would be nice. And then your equation is as follows, okay? So overall, you know what? You knew what you were doing for the most part. You just have to be reading carefully. If I had said reaches a maximum height of 7 after 1.1 seconds, okay, then you know this is 1.1. Okay, you multiply it by 2 to get this. But it didn't say that in this case. Backside. Question 6. Do not underestimate these questions where I give you the equation. They are actually the bread and butter of this unit, like an equation is given. Even next year, an equation will be given quite often. So just enter that into your y1, make sure plot 1 is turned off. And then what's the maximum height of this diver? Okay, it would have been the vertex, but you had to tell me that it's 7.25 meters to get the full marks. So some of you were so close, but not close enough, right? And so what's the horizontal distance of this diver? When it achieved the maximum height, I want you to state the 1.73 meters there. No need to find the vertex again because you already did that. At what horizontal distance from the board did the diver land in the water? Okay, so when is the splash being made? That is the x-intercept here. And some of you went 2 times 1.73. Okay, I kind of appreciated what you were trying to do, but when you're multiplying by 1.73, you're saying it takes 1.73 to here. It will take another 1.73 to get to the initial height. That is true. But it still doesn't tell you how far away from the board you land on the water, correct? You're just finding this point here, which is not correct, right? That's not what we're looking for. So, you know what, I like to see some thinking behind it, but it's not what we wanted. It was 4.84 meters in this case. We're graphing the scenario. You know what? For the most part, your graphs were excellent. Make sure your labels and units are there, and the points are where they're supposed to be and have a good scale. Okay, that's all I'm asking for. Domain and range. I don't know if I'm just giving you easy questions, but so far, your domain and range knowledge is where it's supposed to be for the most part. Okay, so your range is, or so your domain goes here. Range is from 0 all the way to the highest point. So way to go there. Last one. I love this question. I know. I was just sitting one day and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to make a question. I was fishing one day and I saw this happen. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, this is just type 0. Here are the points. Plug them in. And then make sure you have y equals. A lot of you are missing the y equals. That is a half mark n notation. And some of you are missing the x's, okay? So make sure your variables are all there. You may round to 3. You may round to 2. I don't care if as long as it's rounded correctly. It's not a dollar amount. Okay, so we're okay. So that's the equation. Initial height is given by the y-intercept. Calculate the lowest depth of the kingfisher. Explain what this value is telling us. I was very happy with a lot of you did say this is the lowest depth is 0.98 feet below the water surface due to that negative value. You kind of made a hint that it's like the bird is going underwater. And that's why we have the negative. So you either set negative 0.98 feet or 0.98 feet below the water. That's fine. How long does the bird stay underwater? So you have to find, right, you let y2 equal to 0 because that's your water surface here. And you find the time of entry and the time of exit. And when you subtract those two numbers, remember it's 4 decimals along the way. It's 1.17 seconds, right? So you're actually finding out what's happening between these 2 points, which is the time underwater, okay? And then your domain and range. It's, for the most part, you got this right. And it was all in interval, this was set notation, sorry. Set notation, and you came out victorious on that one. Question. I don't know, I forgot already what the test has in store, right? But if I ever did something like this to you, what would be the domain here? You start at 0, right? Does this ever end? Infinity. That's correct. So if I ever have arrowheads, it's going on indefinitely. Okay. So next year there will be some examples, more so than this year, where something just continues to grow. So money, technically money, if you were to put it in an account and just leave it there forever, it will continue to grow based on the interest rate, right? And so some instances do lend themselves to infinity. Yeah. Yeah, it's out of 35, yes. So I made that decision last night. You know, I felt like, yeah, I didn't prepare you enough for it. So you can go ahead and recalculate whatever your mark is out of 35. Went up by a couple percent, I'm guessing.